Good morning, everyone. I am Marco Costa from the Agency of Sustainable Development and Energy based in Modena. Today, we have a session among our Sustainability and Bioarchitecture Week called Beyond Positive Energy District, Cutting-Edge Approaches and Stories from the Forefront. I will start talking about briefly the agency that is organizing this Sustainable Week. We are an energy agency born in 1999 among a European project, and we are a no-profit organization. The association comprehends 130 public partners, mainly from Emilia-Romagna region, but also from other regions in Italy. Our main clients are local authorities for the 80%, and the rest are local businesses and other type of clients. We are a group of 20 experts and growing, and all experts in sustainable energy and mobility sector mainly. Our operation cross the regional, the Italian, and also international level because we work a lot with European projects as well. We are also now the head of the Italian energy agency network called RENEL, and we also act as an ESCO. In general, our services are confined into the sustainable energy and mobility solutions for the public sector. And we have a portfolio of services that span from supporting the sustainable development of communities, mainly working with urban planning and the sustainable energy action plans, but also public lighting and district heating, supporting tenders processes. We also help providing integrated services for buildings, so from energy audits and certifications, tender processes for the energy performance contracts, retrofit design, and also application for financial loans, both at regional and Italian scale, together with feasibility studies and due diligence when needed. We are also active in monitoring and assessing the interventions in the energy efficiency side, so energy monitoring, the contract for the energy performance contract monitoring themselves, the energy efficiency of buildings, and two other areas are more linked to more developing innovative projects like EU-funded projects. We are active with Horizon, Interreg Med, and now also Erasmus+. We are active in the energy community realm with our project GECO in Bologna area. And we are also involved at the training side, so with our academy that provides professional trainings, workshops, events and conferences, and also study tours and train the trainers. So this is a growing area for us, and we hope to provide more in all of these sectors. So today we're going to have 4 speakers. We're still waiting for the last one, but we're going to have Professor Janice Birkeland from Australia that's going to talk about the net positive design and sustainable development concept, so from more academic and research point of view. Then we will hear the NZEB experience, which is a student-led sustainable living lab for adaptive and learning purposes from the University of Padova in Italy. And last, with the intervention from Tom Bossert from NZEB Integrated Sustainability, who's going to present the Orchid City concept. These are our guest speakers today. As I said, Janice Birkeland, Professor of Architecture and Building and Planning for the University of Melbourne. We have Professor Michele De Carli from the Industrial Engineering Department at the University of Padova, and Milica Mitrovic, who's the research fellow in Padova and also the NZEB project manager, and then Tom Bossert from NZEB Sustainability. So now I will give the floor to Professor Janice Birkeland, who's going to start her presentation. Hello, Tom. Nice to see you. See you in the background. Very good. There we go. You should be able to share your screen.
I just clicked the button. Can you see my screen? I don't. Is it? Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
They're positive and similar terms. Sorry, are you there?
Yes, we can hear you, and it's working the screen sharing.
For about 20 years now, so I have an opinion too. By the way, the pictures are here to make you feel better. No particular relevance. Some links of zero energy district plans seem to focus on energy almost in isolation. Energy planning can lead to bad decisions and single function designs if they do not recognize interdependency and synergies. For example, an energy or carbon positive urban district could nonetheless be lacking in nature, life quality, community, or even direct access to the means of survival. Efficient.
I think we have a problem with you in your audio. Did you launch the recording, or are you trying to speak it?
But discouraging passive solar design or encouraging sprawl or over-densification. So, sorry. People look only through microscopes.
Can you stop the?
Yeah.
We cannot hear. We're gonna launch. Hear. No, we cannot hear.
Okay, I thought that would work better. I'll see if I can play. I'm going to talk about what I mean by beyond positive energy districts. Some recent zero energy district plans seem to focus on energy in isolation. Single function planning can lead to bad decisions and designs if they do not recognize interdependency and potential design synergies. For instance, an energy or carbon positive urban district could still be lacking in environmental and life quality, social opportunity, or even direct access to the means of survival. Efficient energy systems can have harmful sustainability impacts. Even renewable energy could reduce sustainability by discouraging passive design or encouraging sprawl or over-densification. We can do better. But today, planners are busy trying to respond to problems created by past planning policies, acts, and omissions. For instance, cities once designed for the convenience of cars created huge sustainability problems. But the equally car-driven strategy of just making cities inconvenient for cars created other problems. If we cannot provide public transport, perhaps instead of just reducing the number of parking spaces, we could design multiple uses of spaces that produce energy and other public functions and benefits. So it's not enough to mitigate the threats planners and politicians created, such as resource depletion, climate change, sea level rise, urban congestion, and expansion. Planning should proactively increase the social and ecological life support systems. Concepts like net zero energy and carbon focus the mind on reduction. Development must also create multiple positive public gains to even begin to compensate for their unavoidable land use, material flows, and pollution until we learn to design net positive cities. We need to revisit sustainability. The term has continually been watered down. Early international declarations often included the idea of proactively keeping future options open. That meant avoiding irreversible pathways such as nuclear waste, deforestation, or other forms of ecocide. There was backlash in the 1970s to limits to growth arguments. However, after the seminal Brundtland Report of 1987, the technocratic professions, industry, and government bureaucracies adopted this view. So when they captured sustainability, the term sustainability was weakened to mean just lasting longer. We're still talking about allowing growth up to its ultimate limits or negative tipping points, like increasing temperatures by 1.5 degrees or exploiting only 2/3 of the Earth. Cities can solve many sustainability problems. Positive development theory argues that built environment planning and design can increase our natural and social life support systems in real terms, beyond zero. The planners have always been concerned with sustainability, but most have only very recently included nature along with human-centered environmental, economic, and social issues. For instance, past sustainability plans often only concern water flowing into and out of their district boundaries, not the whole river system or catchment. So-called sustainability plans perpetuate ecologically harmful development patterns by focusing on just energy and short-term economics. For example, urban densification can save energy, but overly dense cities are hard to retrofit for climate mitigation, renewable energy systems, or new technologies like airborne taxis, let alone basic human needs such as environmental security, water, oxygen, contact with nature, things that are often left to the market. The recent international effort, the New Urban Agenda, had nothing new in it and called for more sensitive urban growth through both urban densification and expansion. Reducing impacts on nature, or even restoring nature, is not increasing nature. Why not use structures and buildings to solve, not just create problems? Green design in the 1970s was about creating healthy, passive solar, low-impact, and nature-friendly environments. However, the aim was mainly energy and resource autonomy, not meeting public needs and benefits. Then, when the Green Building Councils emerged in the 1990s, the focus became limited to efficiency, reducing waste energy and materials to save developers money. But this did not save nature or build community. It may have been necessary back then, but the efficiency standards remained largely relative to bad buildings. Gradually, green buildings became associated with efficient but mechanistic, reductionist, or technocratic design. Consequently, new terms were used to reclaim sustainable design, like regenerative. Resilience, or the ability to recover through restoration, revitalization, and regeneration, ignores the global decline of justice in nature, so green design is unsustainable. So far, green buildings have had a huge opportunity cost. Both planners and designers have left problems of social inequities and nature destruction to politicians and others, so what could go wrong? Most green buildings leave the poor and nature worse off than no building at all. The damage that both ordinary and green buildings do will last for decades. Sustainability will require that green buildings be retrofitted to a genuine sustainability standard. However, since most buildings are not designed for adaptability, they'll cost too much more to upgrade. Efficiency in sustainable design and planning requires obtaining maximum multiple public benefits from each unit of energy and resource, not merely squeezing out waste from single-function projects and products. Zero equals nothing. We need to go beyond repair and renewal. Biophysical structures must be net positive to compensate for past errors. So net positive outcomes means going beyond negative system boundaries like property lines, tipping points, legal liability, or even supply chains. People now recognize that buildings impact every sustainability issue. They drive material flows and impacts in myriad other industries. Therefore, despite their humongous material flows, cities and buildings could have positive system-wide impacts, not just help us screech to a halt at the cliff edge. But we need to go beyond repair and renewal to actually increasing nature and justice. Is this happening? Many big companies are now advertising nature-positive goals. That includes impacts on nature, not just resources. Many developers and manufacturers now recognize that sustainable design can save resources and restore on-site nature and protect occupant health while costing less. However, although many use life cycle assessment and count supply chain impacts on nature, they largely only aim to restore the damage that they themselves are adding. Designs that are eco-efficient by using minimal energy and resources, or eco-effective by closing resource loops, or even nature-positive by restoration or offsetting, are usually only circular. Circular systems will be more economic, but in the global context of accelerating disparities of wealth and biodiversity losses, they're only remedial. That is, reduction, recycling, regeneration, renewal, and other actions to increase nature's resilience to assault are essential, but not net positive. Sustainability is a design problem. Sustainability requires multiplying positives by design, not just deducting negatives. So sustainability is too important to be left to politicians, corporations, markets, or even demonstrators. Each can do their bit, but they'll never do enough. Sustainability does not require financial or personal sacrifice, but current power-based decision systems are geared towards sacrificing the underprivileged in ecosystems. So systems redesign is necessary. Changing the values of voters and consumers does not create real choices. And not to be dark, but real or manufactured crises can quickly reconvert people. However, design must be ethics-based and adaptable, or net positive. Entrenched biases in professional frameworks and methods persist in so-called sustainable planning systems. Regulations, conventions, paradigms, and certification tools lock in old systems and reinforce path dependency. Positive development theory outlines why and how to restructure institutional, intellectual, and physical systems to support net positive sustainability, so it turns the existing models, methods, metrics, and mindsets into sustainable design on their heads. So net positive means more than recovery, renewal, and resilience. It means increasing nature, not just greening the spaces left over after development, and increasing environmental security and equal opportunity, not just privatizing public resources and nature in mansions or luxury goods more efficiently. The word net signifies a whole system global framework, not just outcomes within arbitrary limits such as building, site, or district boundaries. If people keep changing the meaning and standards of net positive to mean just better than the norm, then there will be no word for genuine sustainability. Merely regenerating the remnants of nature, making nature more resilient, or making building stakeholders happier and healthier will barely slow down the rate of planetary destruction. Buildings are composed of manufactured products that, until recently at least, were almost never net zero, so it's hard to imagine net positive. But many forget that buildings have a special dimension. Urban structures can create space for social interaction, multi-purpose shelters, biodiversity incubators, natural passive systems, and other things that in combination can create net gains. Multifunctional spaces and structures can be designed to adapt to social and technical change, such as using modular systems. They can increase future survival options and opportunities through diversity. But new construction and furnishing materials are also available. 3D printed buildings could, for instance, use hempcrete, bamboo, or local agri-waste. But mycelium-based bricks and boards do not take as much land to grow. And fabrics for curtains, furniture, and carpets, and even building energy could be produced by algae-based systems. Net positive buildings can blend in with any ecosystem or cultural tradition, just like passive solar design can, or it can be largely invisible. Metaphors help the imagination, so you could reconceive cities and districts as like reefs in an ocean that nurture and reseed their bioregions. Buildings could be reconceived as garden resorts for everyone, that is, gardens for living instead of machines for living. No projects are certifiably net positive because the claims are not properly assessed, but some projects are currently being assessed with the Net Positive Design app, which I'll discuss soon. So what would the test of a positive development be? Well, it must benefit society and nature in real terms. Therefore, it would measurably increase the ecological base, or be nature positive, increase the public estate, or be socially positive, and increase future options and opportunities. But moreover, if possible, development should overcompensate for its share of existing negative regional or district social conditions beyond its own impacts. So let's look at what constitutes beyond a project's own ecological, social, and economic impacts. Ecologically, net positive design would increase nature beyond pre-urban or pre-industrial conditions for genuine security as well as life quality. So that means not merely regenerating what's left on site or offsetting it by preserving what's left over elsewhere or conserving a fraction of the earth. Cities would instead become life support systems for the bioregions. More ecological space than existed before cities emerged is necessary since buildings consume natural resources and land, and consumption keeps increasing. Since measuring nature is tricky, more volume of ecological space and floor area might suffice as a rule of thumb. Positive development provides examples of urban biodiversity incubators, multifunctional, adaptable design concepts that with proper detailing and execution, of course, can be net positive, such as green scaffolding, passive solar retrofit modules, organic playgrounds or play gardens, and so on. So socially, net positive design means improving social justice, living conditions, resource security, and equity at the regional scale, beyond just benefiting owners and occupants. Since most developments discriminate against the poor and buildings privatize public resources, developments must have positive off-site or regional social benefits. Design should compensate for its share of negative district social conditions and not use offsets to allow socially negative projects. Positive development provides 22 new planning analyses to examine site-specific, local, regional, or national deficits. Economic sustainability of a project is not the issue, as developers have many tools for looking after themselves. Designers have budgets, sustainable design can save money, and uneconomical buildings aren't usually built. But the built environment should advance the economy and not just stakeholders. So what can ensure the sustainability of the economy? Well, strong economies require political stability, which requires democracy to reduce conflict, which requires resource security and freedom, which requires access to the means of survival, which requires biophysical structures that provide design for ecosystem services. Centralized markets and infrastructure can fail to provide basic needs when needed most. Really, only biophysical structures can absolutely ensure access to the means of survival in civil or environmental crises. So the economy requires districts and structures that provide universal resource security through, for instance, design for ecosystem services that produce clean air, food, water, and so on. Economically positive growth can be achieved by eco-positive retrofitting. It can save society resources, create diversity, and preserve stable communities because it can produce continuous job growth as there's a constant need for retrofitting, and it can pay for itself from the energy, water, and health savings. Emergency shelters, vertical urban farms, community recreation facilities, and so on can be designed to provide multiple public functions and services. So the standard is design that distributes public benefits for economic efficiency and access to basic needs for freedom to ensure democracy, which a sustainable economy requires. So in summary, the logic behind positive development is in part that sustainability requires environmental justice, equal opportunity, and nature. It requires a different open system design paradigm based on a new sustainability theory and practice, which entails new intellectual concepts and frameworks, and requires the integration of decision-making with design, which requires the redesign of systems of governance. By governance, I mean checks and balances to prevent the abuse of power. So we need to design checks and balances between corporations and government. Positive planning and design processes and tools are summarized in two textbooks, Positive Development 2008 and Positive Design in 2019. The free Net Positive Design app called Starfish is unlike other tools. For instance, it calculates remote and cumulative impacts in real time as the design evolves. The tool has embedded instructions, as does the book, website, and video, and one can ask questions about how to use it on the website. 24 major differences between the Starfish and green building rating tools are explained on the website and publications. For instance, Starfish sets benchmarks relative to genuine sustainability, whereas most tools only assess improvements over typical buildings, practices, or site conditions, which is the distance from unsustainability. Tools do not measure beyond zero, so net positive impacts aren't really assessed or measured, although some tools cheat and count reductions in negative impacts as positive. The Starfish distinguishes ecological environmental impacts, whereas many tools give ecological points for less bad indoor environments. New planning methods include genuinely participatory sustainability processes and a set of planning analyses for urban design that are still missing from both theory and practice. These diagrams that accompany the text suggest how conventional approaches reinforce the status quo. These analyses, depending on project size, can be conducted as a simple community mind mapping exercise or as big data analyses by experts. These analyses will be included in the Starfish tool as a satellite diagram or a standalone diagram to guide net positive planning. I'll only have time to show the outline, but I'll put a video summary on the website for those that are too busy to read words. Some of these analyses concern energy systems, but they focus on how these systems can increase sustainability values, such as human rights, security, and freedom. These analyses concern different stages of the design and planning process, and I've simply given them all names and initials. These are issues at the building or project scale, urban planning at district or regional scales, decision-making at the development scale, and governance at regional and national scale. So I'll stop here for questions. Thank you, and you're all welcome to contact me for further information.
All right. So thank you very much. Now, so we saw that we can go beyond positive energy districts, talking also about the eco-services and livability of our cities and neighborhoods. Now we will stay in the academia, and we will hear the example from UNIZEB, from the University of Padova. We will start with Milica Mitrovic and then Professor De Carli. We'll give you the floor.
Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, you can try to launch it.
Okay, now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, just a second. I had to minimize this part. Okay. Good morning to everyone. I'm Milica Mitrovic and I'm a project manager of UNIZEB. And today I want to show you our project that started in 2015. First of all, I want to talk about our vision and mission that explain our project in more efficient way. So our vision is about the promotion of environmental, social, and economic sustainability through study, research, and training, because Italian universities are very theoretical. So as a students, we need to implement everything we learn at the university. So we have a need to get our hands dirty. And this is the reason of our mission that is based on the 3 pillars. First of all, we are working about the innovation in teaching through an experimental learning approach, where the students has the possibility to implement, to experiment whatever they learn at the university. The second pillar is about the innovation in the construction sector through the creation of a living lab on the energy buildings. For us, Living Lab is a building where the companies that are sponsors of our project have the possibility to experiment their new technologies in same conditions, in realistic conditions. And through this, there is also the promotion of a technology transfer. As I said before, our project was born in 2015, and the person who think about this project was Marco Costa, and we thank you for this idea. And nowadays we are under the construction of this first pilot, and we are going to finish the construction maybe in the summer of next year. This represents only the first phase of our project, because after the construction of the first pilot, we are going to monitor some parameters we selected with the companies and the professors. And the same year, there's going to be a redesign of some technologies that we are going to remonitoring the year after. So this is going to be a circular process of our project, where the different companies could have the possibility to experiment their new technologies in the same conditions. In fact, our stakeholders are made by more than 30 companies, 4 departments of the University of Padua, and some institutions that support us to build or to manage this kind of project. The project is about the construction of a building of 80 square meters, and the particularity of this building is the co-presence of different technologies in the same conditions. So, for example, on the south face facade, we have the ventilated wall and a simple wall with the shaving. Also in the roof, we have three technologies, 3 different technologies. For example, on the west, we have a green roof. In the middle, we have a floating floor, and on the east, we have a grave. About the plants, we can say that the climatization of our indoor ambience, we have the radiant panels. We have the fitted decoration for the manage of the wastewater. We have also solar panels for the electrical energy, the mechanical ventilation for the quality of air, also the illumination with the LED. Just a second. And this is the main plans we implemented in our project. And because of this, our research is about the building envelope, the plants are renewable energy and storage, comfort, air quality, lighting, new materials and new technologies, wastewater accessibility, home automation, smart building, new generation of electrical appliances, occupants behavior and engagement of occupants. Because in this building, there will be some students who are going to live in this building, so we can understand how the people interact with these technologies, or how they are going to live in a sustainable way. And last but not least, we are going to study also the energy flexibility. These are some photos of the construction of the platform, but to understand every part of this process, I'm going to show you a video of this part. Let me see if you can hear. Okay, just a few seconds and I can. This is the result of our construction. So, but nowadays, I want to show you only a few seconds of the result of nowadays. Now we are here with the walls already constructed. So next week we are going to put the installation of the house. So it's going to be a special moment for us. And I'll continue. Okay, I want to finish my presentation with these photos because there are some photos of the last inauguration we made in July, and it was a special moment because we coordinate our project, our first step of this project. This is a press review that describe how the institutions and some companies believe in our project. These are our contacts, and I passed the presentation to Professor Michele Carli. Thank you for the attention. No, we can hear you.
Now, can you hear me?
Now, yes.
Can you hear
now.
me? No,
Yeah.
okay, perfect. Okay, so I think you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Melissa. She has perfectly introduced. She also updated you about where we are so far. So this project started about 6 years ago, and it has been a long process because we had to to relate the different partners, as you can see here. These are, let's say, the public or institutional partners. We have our municipality, of course. We have the Council of Engineers. We have the Building Construction Association and the School of Builders of the University of Padua, and the Safety Agency. Just a little bit to explain the roles of the different partners. The School of Builders is the owner of the building or the location, and the building is in charge of them, while we are then have a free loan during the use of the building. So the idea is that we are setting up the first prototype of the building, and we will use the building as a living lab. 3 students will leave the building when the building will be finished, and we will monitor the building for 1 year, so taking into account the heating and cooling season. The Association of Builders is, of course, a big part of the project because they are partners of the School of Builders, but they are also setting up a very interesting network, and we are assisted by them in the construction of this laboratory. The healthcare company has the mission of to promote the safety and health on site. And then we have, of course, the municipality of Padua, which is facilitating us in the procedures, but we are going also to set up some joint activities with them once the building will be finished. And of course, as the university, we are the intellectual owner of the project. We are coordinating the scientific activities, and we are doing their teaching, education, research and also technology transfer. So the idea is that this laboratory is, let's say, open somehow to everyone who is interested to face the problems of buildings. Now, the building, as has been shown by Milica, is very simple. Is about 80 square meters. We have a living room. We have technical rooms here. We have a bathroom. Then we have single room and double room where the students will live. The building is equipped with, for the heating and cooling system, is equipped with radiant ceiling. We have a ground source heat pump. And we have the mechanical ventilation system, which is also handling the air in summertime in order to decrease the level of vapor of the level of humidity of the air, which in summer is quite high here in the Po Valley. We have a photovoltaic system in order to provide renewable energy, and we have also batteries for the electrical energy storage. Of course, when we talk about green buildings, we are not talking only about energy, but we are looking at, let's say, some other sustainability issues. We have, as you have seen from the picture, we have the structure is wooden construction. We are also looking at the water management and the hydro remediation plant. We have rainwater management. We have a domotic system where we are going to look at the potential solutions to make the building more flexible. We have sensor meters and building automation for doing that. Connected in a Connex way with the Connex protocol, and we have, as already said by Milica, we have three types of roofs. We have green roof, gravel, and raised floor. And we will make a monitoring activity. The monitoring activity will be quite strong in terms of energy performance, indoor air quality, and comfort performance, and also on the envelopes. On the envelope, vertical envelope, and also the roofs. The building is a zero energy building, hopefully positive building. We made a first estimation of the consumption of the building. In principle, it should be a positive energy building. These are let's say the energy analysis for the building month by month, and here you can see the electrical energy. As you can see, we have during the winter months, which are of course less sunny, they are more cloudy. Here we have we are going to buy some electricity from the grid. During the summer season, we are going to produce more electrical energy than we consume, and of course, again, in the last months of the year, we are going to require more electricity from the grid than we produce. So overall, making a yearly balance, the balance should be positive based on our calculation. Of course, what we are doing so far is to set up this laboratory. So we are building from zero the laboratory, and we are going to set up the first, let's say, pilot building, where we are going to make the measurements or the monitoring activity between the end of the next year, 2022 and 2023. And the idea is that when we finish 1 year monitoring activity, then we are going to set up a new prototype, or let's say we will remove some parts of the building, and we are going to install new features, new systems in order to make a new monitoring activity in the following year. So the idea is to make a sort of continuous laboratory where we are going to do research activity and also, as I told you, teaching activity, and also educational activity and technology transfer. So this is the basic idea of UNIZEB. Of course, if you are interested, you can follow us in the different media. And I thank you for your attention, and I stop the presentation here. Thank you.
Marco, are you here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much for your presentation. Now we're going to have 10 minutes break, and we will come back with the presentation from Tom Boskjaer. I leave you just the slide that just to remind you that we are still into our sustainability week, and we still have a few sessions from today and this afternoon, and also until Friday afternoon. You can register if you want in our website www.settimanabioarchitettura.it, and we will gonna see in very few minutes with Tom. Thank you very much, and see you in a bit. Ah, ok, pensavo dovessi andare di là. Grazie. All right, can you all hear me? Yes. So now we go with our last speaker, Tom Bossgaert from NZEB Integrated Sustainability. He's going to present the Orchid City concept. And this is also a very international panel because he's connected from Vietnam. We have a professor from Australia and the others from Italy. So I'm very glad that we are having this international session. So Tom, the floor is yours. I'll give you the right to share. And now you should be able to share it.
All right.
We cannot. Oh, all right. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, we see the PDF.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Bossgaert. I am the founder and director of NZEB Integrated Sustainability. And I'm very happy to be here also with esteemed colleagues that went before me with their fascinating projects and presentations. I hope to add a little bit with some practical projects that we've been doing. So a little bit about us. Our organization has as a mission to create the foundations of a sustainable society. We are based in the Netherlands and operate around the world for about 22 years now. We combine a science and research group together with designers and engineers, as well as business managers, and together we work on pioneering projects that really try to help move the needle in terms of sustainable development. So we work on projects in the built environment, for example, Salesforce Park, which is the largest ecosystem serviced rooftop park in the world in San Francisco that opened just a few years ago, as well as Serenity Farms that I'll show you a little bit of in a bit, as well as on fully self-sustaining and regenerative neighborhoods and building designs that I will get into with Orchid City. So what we do as an organization, basically a non-profit, we help to do initial research and analysis, then we develop a strategy and concepts, we help the design and engineering, and then we help project management so that projects really become realized, and every single project needs to be a pioneering project that moves us ahead towards a more sustainable society. So we've had several hundred projects now, quite well distributed around the world, mostly in developed countries, but recently we've started some new developments in developing countries, and in Southeast Asia we are increasingly active. In each of the approaches that we do in every project, we use a methodology called symbiosis in development. Symbiosis in development is a complex systems thinking framework that allows us to look at the entirety of the systems that we're operating in, and then we're regarding every single project as a way to improve the performance of that system. So all of our projects, they stand in service to reaching out to achieve a higher impact than just whatever it is that it is impacting it itself. As well as a presentation at the beginning of the conference about the importance of looking at an integrated perspective when we look at the built environment. We also take along all aspects such as not just energy and material concerns, also ecosystems, the economy, cultural aspects, social aspects such as happiness and health, education, and integrate that into a single approach. In case anyone is interested, SID has been developed for about 20 years. There's a lot of free videos, and the book that was written, Omnibus, is also free, that you can download from thinksit.org if you would like. So let me go to some case studies. I'll quickly show you two separate ones and then go a little bit more in depth about Orchid City. UCO is kind of a relatively small but very telltale project of ours, which is also our own office, where we try to show a little bit to eat our own medicine, if you will. So this building that you're looking at is was an old dilapidated, ruined train repair station. It had been in disrepair for over 20 years and had been written off. But it was also a heritage building, so something needed to be done with it. Nobody really wanted to touch it because heritage buildings are expensive and difficult to manage, while at the same time it was in a very poor state. What we did was we tried to show that for a low budget we could reach a very high sustainability level, fully circular, fully energy positive, fully water positive, and reducing waste during construction to more than 80%, as well as waste during operations. At the same time, we wanted to make this a center for sustainable entrepreneurship so that the project could help to actually increase the sustainability of the region, which is what we've done. So investing in this ourselves as a put your money where your mouth is kind of project, we started to work. We renovated the building using readily available technologies, but in a new way, where we spent a lot of attention on the indoor climate and the quality of the space, and also the future flexibility, so that after its function that we're giving it now may be gone, it can be converted easily to any other function. So there are no new structural elements included, and it's one big open space where everything is flexible and can be moved with a very high quality of interior health. We're achieving that using only natural and circular materials. No paint has been added from chemical sources, and more than 1,000 plants have been added in the interior space, and we get more than 80% of our light from daylight. So here you can see it kind of as it is today. This is my desk over there, and all of the materials that you see here have been built using social workplaces from locally sourced wood materials or waste materials. And so this is kind of like our business card, where people come and we can show them the story of circularity and positive design. Here's a bit of a totally different project that gives you a bit of an idea of the scale and range that we are working at. Serenity Farms is a project that focuses on the food problem, especially in arid regions. So as you may be aware, we have this food security issue that is a combination of the systemic parameter of population growth. We have, of course, climate change. We have globally facing water shortages as well as nutrient shortages. And these combine together with some other parameters such as land availability, erosion, biodiversity loss, into an increasingly difficult situation to secure our food for the future. Now, water shortages is something that may not be so apparent, but of course in the GCC, in the Middle East, and in other arid regions, that is readily apparent. And here you get this exacerbated situation where some countries rely on more than 80% of input for their food. And in the location where we have planned this project in Saudi Arabia, it's even growing. and the water reserves are to be depleted by 2030. So we're seeing here a real confluence of all these systemic parameters that in daily life people in Saudi Arabia, for example, are not that aware of, but that the food risk, food security is a huge problem that is coming on top of the other climate change, water availability, and energy and population challenges that they already have. So what we did, we came together with a group of scientists and designers, as well as business developers, and we started drafting a potential answer that is really trying to make use of the abundant resources that are available, which is both sunlight and salt water, because of its availability of the water from the Red Sea. And here we developed a system that uses reasonably available technology that converts the salt water to potable water through the use of direct conversion of sunlight, while also generating electricity to produce fresh local foods. And this system consists of, here you can see kind of like a flow diagram. It gives you a bit of an indication of the complexity of the system, while each individual module here is a readily available technology. The way that they are connected and hooked up to each other are really quite innovative. And what we're really trying to achieve here is not so much developing a new technology or a new factory or something to offset an already existing food supply chain. What really is happening here is, as I can show you here, is we are actually completely changing the supply chain that is feeding these arid countries. As we are unaware is that most of the fresh food that is available in these countries come in through cooled air freight. So Boeing jumbo jets flying daily to and from places such as Spain or the Netherlands to provide them with tomatoes and zucchinis and salads and so on. So the impact really lies in that air travel and that cooled transport. And while the food arrives, it's no longer very fresh, and the prices are also very high, so that it is not readily available for all layers within society. So what we're really doing here is we have a 99.9% of CO2 savings, which we then offset to make entirely positive by generating more power than we need and using only salt water to produce the food in question. So over the past 22 years, we have been developing all of these different projects to try to move the performance level of a realistically achievable, sustainable society. Now, about 2 years ago, we started to put together all of these different ingredients to one model for what we would call building a future city today. So here we are combining all of the aspects that we've learned and the partnerships that we've brought together to create something that has a systemic answer towards our fundamental sustainability challenge, where we see that, of course, climate change, ecosystems and biodiversity challenges, resource shortages, land, water, energy, food, and so on, as well as economic resilience, including job provision and equitable finance, and social challenges all come together inside of the built environment. And that here that we thought that we could create a milestone project that can realistically show, physically expressed, of how a new form of society could be without relying too much on technologies or having a particular technology focus, such as, for example, developments as Masdar or Neom or Toyota's Woven City have. Very tech-focused and not readily available to be expanded to also include aspects such as ecosystem restoration, nature inclusivity, positive developments, social connectivity, and so on. So that's what we're trying to do here with Orchid City. What is a real core focus of that is that we are putting together all of the essential life functions that you need on a weekly and if possible monthly basis. So that means that these are not housing neighborhoods, they are living neighborhoods where there is a component of housing, but there's also education, there are production centers, there's entertainment, there are working areas, there's transportation in between them to be able to cater for all the services that are necessary within a weekly basis. That also means that it's entirely walkable, and any use of mechanized transportation would be by choice. And a private ownership of, for example, cars would not be available, but there is shared electric transport within the neighborhood. We're developing this with an increasing number of partners internationally. We have a core in the Netherlands because that is where we're based, but we're also exploring locations currently in Japan. We're working in Vietnam with different partners because we are searching for locations there, and in other countries as well, to really connect intelligence, knowledge, and products that we need in order to be able to realize this quickly. So what we're really doing here is we want to build a place that would be normal and a great place to live 20 years from now, but we want to build it today. And we want to make that realistic, feasible, and affordable. So this is not a prototype, it's not a pilot project of some idealistic way of living that may only be suited for a small portion of the population, but it's supposed to be it's aimed at being a society where most of us would be happy to live, that really builds within the planetary boundaries and within the carrying capacity of the natural systems that support it. So we have the autonomy aspects, for example, for food, water, and energy, and the daily services that are all provided by the neighborhood itself. We have the harmony aspects, such as social inclusivity, making it affordable and making it inclusive, as well as making it resilient towards future changes, making it climate adaptive, flood proof, to build regenerative nature, and also be generation proof as we grow older and our habits and lifestyles change. In the program, what that results as, if you start modeling this and the requirements that you would need to feed and power such a city, you arrive at something like this. You arrive at a footprint that requires about 80% regenerative agriculture, 12% rewilded nature, a fair component of water, and only 2% would be built up. In the energy material resources, we have a completely closed system that mostly relies on ecosystem services. So the agriculture is tightly connected to the energy and the water system, which is then also integrated using the waste cycles in order to be entirely self-sufficient. And by doing so, for example, we can use biogenerators to create biogas that can be used to generate electricity and heat in a way that would otherwise not be feasible, and that offsets the need for battery systems to store electricity when there is peak power available. And these kinds of smart combinations of an integrated way of looking, and then integrating that with the socially activated and equitable system, will result in an Orchid City model. The model that we've created can range from about 500 inhabitants to 15 or even 50,000 inhabitants. So the models allow us to scale and step and to quickly develop new master plans for different locations that then integrated regenerative nature and food production as one of its core components. Really, the entire area is powered by the land that it exists on and the ecosystems that have been managed there. We are spending a lot of time on creating the social and health and happiness systems that are allowed to connect people amongst each other, including cross-generational connection, so that the elderly population can have a useful function connected to the rest of society, and to include those life patterns as they change. Also, in case of work, the projects are job neutral. That means that they provide as many jobs as there would be normally the requirement for people. Not everyone that lives in those neighborhoods would work there, and not everyone that works there would live there, but it is job neutral in a sense that it can also completely revitalize shrinking regional systems that we're seeing all over the world, and counteract a little bit the increased urbanization that we're seeing, especially in developing countries. In order to test it, we have developed 3 prototype master plans, one in Brazil, one in the Netherlands, and one in Vietnam. And they each focus on a different facet. So Brazil has a focus on social inclusivity, regenerative nature, as well as some mobility aspects, whereas the Netherlands focuses on education, integration with the existing kind of tightly divided landscape and its policies. And in Vietnam, we're focusing on being flood-proof within the river delta, high-tech agriculture that would be available, as well as rural job creation. So let's have a quick look here at Orchid City, Vietnam. So here you can see the prototype master plan, where we are combining a number of satellite cores with some higher urbanized cores. What you're seeing here is that what we're doing with the water is we're allowing the water to come in, and as the water table rises and lowers due to seasonal changes that are predicted to change due to climate change, it can actually elegantly deal with the flooding situation that will be occurring into the future. So rather than fighting against it and building a resistance against it, we are building a resilient way of dealing with it in the master plan. At the same time, we're distributing these services so that all of the weekly services are available within each satellite, and monthly services are available within the cores. So here we're seeing a picture of more of a high density of one of the cores, where you see that different layers of housing are intermixed in a more urban environment. That is also pit against the lower density urban agricultural areas that are on the outskirts. So here you can see a little bit of some of the master plans that we're working on for the higher density, still completely interwoven with ecosystem services and the water in entirely walkable neighborhoods, where a high variety of diversity in both buildings, landscape, and program allows these to be very dynamic places that are also within a 5-minute walking distance from all your essential needs. Here's some more pictures. Here I love this this one, because what this really shows is that the water here looks just like a lovely place to be, but what the water really is in this case, it's a distribution conduit for the agricultural systems. It is a water purification system using phytoremediation systems that are connected to it. It can raise and lower depending on different climate situations, and therefore it's also a stormwater buffer and a stormwater drain, and it as well can be used for recreation, and it helps biodiversity. So with that kind of element as an example, you can see how much value you can create when you really embrace that integrated approach, rather than just putting solar panels on roofs as a kind of an exaggerated example of the opposite. So what we're able to do here in terms of climate change impact for an Orchid City of 50,000 people is where we're able to save 140% of CO2 footprint per person, which means that it offsets 40% of CO2 of people that are not living in the city. So we're having a climate positive effect. We're producing all of its food requirement with organic farms. we're producing 100% of the jobs needed with 30,000 direct jobs created. We have the entirety of the schooling requirements present on site. We are contributing a huge amount to the local economy, also to be self-sustaining, and they are financially feasible and investable with an interesting rate of return that can allow for capital investment from traditional sources. And we have land and water regeneration of a significant amount with the regenerative agriculture. And then last but not least, we are aiming to restore beyond 100% of natural biodiversity, and we are also aiming the projects to be built at dilapidated sites that are either brownfields that have been polluted or that have degraded ecosystems that we can help to recover. And yeah, that's the summary of Orchid City. We are currently working on expanding our partnerships in various countries, really aimed at finding locations to build Orchid cities for around 5,000 people. We are having our initial conversations now. So I'm also now in Vietnam to talk to some municipalities to find some locations. And then we hope within the next 2-3 years to have about 2 locations selected for which we will start the development plan. And with that, I'd like to give it back. So here we go.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now. Yeah. Thank you very much, Tom. I think it was great to have you today and present this concept. I think it's really cutting edge, and it could be a good inspiration also for the Italian context, which was we don't see very often these kind of examples. So now I would like to have some questions to all of you. Maybe, yeah, we can see all of you again. The first one would be a question that I would like you, if you want to answer all of you, it's in like bullet points, a couple of minutes each. Since we work a lot with institutions, I think it would be interesting to see your view in terms of which are the policies that should be implemented at the political, institutional level to foster these concepts that we presented today. If you see any gaps missing or opportunities at the policy level, what's your opinion given the experience in different areas of the world? So maybe we can start from directly you, Tom, that you just finished.
Yeah, I think that that's a big question, since of course all agents within society have their role to play within our transition, and policy of course is a very important one. We see that with COP26 that there are very strong limits to what policy can achieve. And I think that in that we have tried to launch Orchid City with the express purpose of showing to the world that if you stand behind these practical implemented projects that are trying to move the threshold of what is possible, then only then policy can be implemented to try to achieve it elsewhere. Policy always requires that example to lead the way rather than creating it in the first place. And in that sense, I think policy can support these kinds of transitional trajectories by, one, actually physically creating the funding and the partnerships in order to start executing them. And secondarily, something that we've seen in various countries that really helps is appointing regions that have a lower degree of regulation. For example, with Orchid City, we run into a problem all the time that we're not allowed to purify our own black water. And black water filtration, as my colleagues probably know, in most countries has to be done by the municipality in a certain amount of way for health reasons. And those reasons are very valid. However, it really holds back a project like this where you're trying to integrate it and doing it in a safe way. And that's why we've seen in some countries some of these experimental regions where policy measures like this can be actually discussed and adapted. in order to allow this sort of next generation development to take place. So those are two things that I would mention would be really important for policy.
Thank you very much. And maybe we can see the view from Professor Birkeland from Australia. Do you have any examples from there at the policy level?
It says I'm muted. Let's see.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Now, okay. Well, Australia's been a bit of a problem because of the power of the coal industry. And for years, I tried to get a net positive development going. And frankly, unlike Tom, I couldn't really gain support or finances or anything, and spun my wheels for quite a while. So I'm very impressed with what he's achieved. As I've often said, policy is, well, it's always 20 years behind anyway. And if you just look at the Sustainable Development Goals or the new urban agenda and so on, really they could have been written in the 1970s. So they're very, very good to see, but they're not very progressive. For instance, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals are all lovely, but if you look at the indicators, they're pretty much 1950s or 60s indicators like GDP and no indication of what the priority funding is or where the funding might come from. So they're indicators, but they're really just a wish list that doesn't even consider positive gains, only remediation. So I think it's up, I really feel it's up to designers who are equipped to really think about how we change development control processes, how we change buildings, and how we change development governance. Unfortunately, designers have been focused on converting others in many cases, or simply clinging to what they've learned in the past. So there are exceptions, but they're still in the minority.
Thank you very much. Yeah, now maybe we can hear from the Italian example. We all know, most of the audience knows about we have a big push at the political level and the institutional level with the super bonus, 110% scheme, and conto termico and other schemes, but maybe we still need something, or do we need something else in your opinion, Professor or Milica, even both of you if you want, in the Italian case? You are muted. No, you're still muted, I think. Maybe Milica, if you want to start, we will solve the issue.
Okay. Meanwhile, the professor try to connect. I can say that the only thing for our point of view, or for my point of view, the institutions could invest more in the next generation, in their I don't know, in their laboratory, in their concrete experience at the university. So this could be an improvement to get better in our sector, to get some level up of our sector. And because we find that if the students have the possibility to understand before they finish the university, they can improve some companies in the innovation in some sector and so on. So this is my point of view, where the students could be the point of the new investments.
Okay.
And but the professor has a better point of view to explain the policies about our sector.
Can you hear us, Professor De Carli? We still cannot hear you, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe
you can reconnect, Professor.
Yeah, maybe I can continue with you, Milica, and asking, following up what you just said about the experience that the students have. How do you see it in terms of skills development for real matching with the skills that are required at the professional level, also to close the gaps in skills requirements to foster the energy transition? And how is your example unique as far as you know, or is it also compared to other experiences at the student level? And why is it important to maybe replicate across the country or in other areas?
I think that the abilities that are required in the world of the work are the soft skills, because you have to learn how to work in the group, how to contaminate with other sectors, with other knowledge about something different from your course of study. Because, for example, I'm an architectural engineer, but I'm working with energy engineers, so I have the possibility to understand their point of view and to get a better design of these innovative buildings. And this is, for me, it's important to understand how to implement how to manage, for example, your time, how to manage the group, or how to manage some different point of view for the project, because nowadays it's important to have an integrated design of everything. So we have to contaminate each other to understand and to get better in every part or in every way we are working or we are going to design. So. And this is for me, so summarizing, for me, the abilities we have to implement are soft skills that that is about the working group and the integrated design. So they are the principal abilities we have to implement, to involve. I don't know if the professor can speak.
Yeah, now I can speak. Yes. So,
Okay.
I think you summarized very well one of the main topics of the project, which is to, let's say, to combine the different experiences, expertises we have, and also to the students to see the project in a more holistic way, because they have to face with the different people from engineering to, let's say, communication, economics. So it's a very interesting project, and I think that is something that I have seen also in the other presentations. Not only to look in a narrow range or just in your topic, but looking at or having a complete vision, not only focusing on what you are doing, but trying to connect with the other expertises. So.
Thank you very much. Going back to Tom, I was curious to know about from you and your opinion in terms not only in policies but also in supporting with financing schemes or direct investments. Do you see the public to be directly involved? Is it required to push these kind of models, or should be left mainly to private investors or citizens themselves, maybe, in order to have the sufficient momentum to spread this concept?
Well, that's an interesting question that I think the answer to which will depend a little bit on what country and what context you're talking about. I would say that ideally you would like to have as much end user participation and therefore also end user investment as possible, to have a real buy-in from the community, but also ownership and control. That's really how you would ideally like to sketch it. But if we're talking about building something like Orchid City, which simply requires a certain scale in order to work, you can't build an Orchid City with 200 houses. You can't. You can build a beautiful nature inclusive, or as Janice called it, positive development, but not to the level of Orchid City where you have a high school and you have, a hospital and a clinic like that, because they require a certain level of volume in order to do that. The amount of money that is involved to get that off the ground is hundreds of millions of euros or dollars. That means that policymakers will be involved no matter what, to an important degree. And the question is, to what degree are policymakers going to step in and say, okay, this is actually to our national and international benefit, or are they going to hand back and wait until the big money comes in? And the problem with that will be, and we are setting up the structures to prevent that the big capital investment will have too much control over the end quality, pushing away, for example, the social programs. But that risk is very real. And if you want to prevent that, then I think that policymakers do have a responsibility to say, okay, you know what? We should take a 20% stake in something like this, so that we can assure the quality of certain aspects, such as social connectivity, the connection with the municipality, the, local governance, and things like that. So yeah, I do think that there is an important role to play there in finance as well as just policy making. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Professor Birkeland, you've been researching and studying this concept for many years. Do you see them coming to the mainstream nowadays, or are we still far away and will be still a niche application in your opinion? And yeah, how do you see the future of these concepts to be deployed? I think you're on mute.
Oh, thank you. As I was saying, it's always been very patchy. I remember back in the 1950s thinking that the world was changing and people were becoming more aware of the importance of the environment. And every decade or so, I think that again, and then something reminds me that it's just very patchy. But the difference today is that economists are embracing, as I said in the talk, what they call nature positive, like the World Economic Forum is using that term, by which they mean just restoring the damage that is done by development. But it's a really big sea change for mainstream economists to talk this way. There's always been ecological and environmental economists, but even they are often not very holistic and have very little interest in the built environment as a solution to sustainability problems. So I think there is a change. I don't know if, the sustainability movement is sort of circuitous, and it doesn't just go up and down. It goes in a kind of spiral that's gradually getting wider and higher. So I'm cautiously optimistic. It's just that we've lost so much biodiversity and the population growth keeps expanding, and particularly disparities of wealth. I mean, if you got Elon Musk interested in building an genuine eco city, he could probably do it, which is great, but kind of frightening because the next really rich guy may not be very nice, and they would have equal power to do what they want. Even though I've preached positive development for decades, I may sound a bit dark, but that's because I think to be positive, you do have to be critical and you have to be accepting of reality.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to reconnect with this last point, also the importance of not only top-down approaches, but more bottom-up. And I would like to ask Tom, maybe if you want to expand a bit more on the SEED concept and how it could be effective for organizations and maybe even citizens or institutions to develop more bottom-up and shared approach with this concept, and to replicate as well Orchid City or other even less structured examples, for example.
Sure. First of all, I would like to compliment Mrs. Birkeland on the starfish program. Been having a look at that and also sent it along to my team. I think that there, you know, what you see with the starfish program, which is this great attempt to pull back the attention to the integrated issue of the challenges that we have, and to also make that measurable on the things that count, not the things that someone once said and wrote on a piece of paper and that then became some kind of target somewhere, like BREEAM and LEED and so on are doing. I think kind of putting that in context, symbiosis in development was really developed from our recognition that there aren't really any or there weren't really any systemic analysis and design tools when we started out for integrated sustainable development. There were fragments here and there are really great research done by a lot of different people, but there wasn't an A to Z kind of pathway that has a shared language, both on the object-oriented aspects such as energy, food, and so on, towards the more systemic elements such as resilience and climate adaptation and social justice. And so how do you take along different disciplines, designers, but also engineers, scientists, policymakers, communicators, and to develop kind of a shared language to allow co-creation where everyone understands these concepts in relation to each other. So symbiosis in development really is, in that sense, it's a neutral framework that doesn't say what is good or bad, but it creates an understanding to relate all of these aspects to each other, and it creates a working model where people can go from a day-to-day basis with a group in co-creation to develop these projects, whether or not they last for 3 days or they last for 3 years. Now, in that, we've made it open source. We've done as much as we can to allow that spread to take place. And in the last 10 years or so, we've spent quite a bit of time working with governments and municipalities to learn this and to integrate that into their way of working. And we've seen that once people start to learn about system thinking in general, I mean, that doesn't have to do through symbiosis in development, but it's one of the ways to do it, but also combine that with an integrated approach. So systems thinking and an integrated approach, and then connect it up to co-creation methods. You can see that that works well within a policy-making environment. So within the Netherlands, we've worked with quite a lot of municipalities that have started to communicate differently between their departments to get out of those silos that they are often in, where the Department of Mobility isn't really talking to the Department of Social Development. And this requires that sort of connectivity to take place, and it allows for a toolkit allows them to connect and work from the ground up to make new policy frameworks and to create a more fundamental understanding between all the stakeholders in the challenges that we have. And I think that that's a worthwhile thing to have. Yeah, but I mean, there's still so much to do on that regard that that it's not time to rest on it yet.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we really care about this topic also at the agency, because we think system thinking is what is missing sometimes to go beyond the technical sides of projects, and also, as you said, with the silos and departments working not together all the time. With this last intervention, I would like to close the session, and I would like to thank every speaker today. We had some little technical issues, but I think it went really well. Also, I would like to thank my colleagues, Francesca Poli in the background. She's the organizer of the whole week, and also Marco and Andrea for the technical support today. I will just like to share one last time there we go, the program for the last few days of the week. You can still subscribe. We have a session today about the schools example and how they deal with the sustainability, and then tomorrow and Friday for our last events. Last will be the prize for sustainable mobility. Thank you again, everyone, and see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.